Right. Looks like we're now streaming.
And I need to make sure that we are recording.
All right. We are in business. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Great.
Yeah,
So,
yes.
welcome to the 2024 Convention Leader Training. So, this is our final session for this particular training series. So, welcome on behalf of the LP Texas Credentials Committee. Our game plan for today is first just want to kind of introduce myself, and then I also want to introduce some of the members of the Credentials Committee that are on the call with us today. So my name is Jessie Cowart. I wear a few different hats in the party. I'm the chair of Montgomery County. I'm also the SD4 Select Representative, but today I am coming to you in my capacity on the Credentials Committee. We have some folks who weren't able to join us from the Credentials Committee today. You can see everybody's names in the box on the right-hand side of the screen. Also on the call with me today is Mr. Scott Peterson, and he will be watching the chat in case you guys have any questions throughout the training session. I will be pausing at certain intervals throughout the training. So if you don't see or if you have a question and we don't get to it kind of in real time in the chat, I will be pausing and kind of asking for questions that are coming out of the chat. So if I don't answer your question, hold that thought and I'll get to you in just a few minutes. So what we'll be going over today is really an overview and a timeline of the election cycle. We want to talk to you guys about how you need to go about posting your convention notices, because you will need to post notice for both of your precinct and your county convention. And then we're going to go into details on the the precinct convention, eligibility, what's the kind of the flow of the conventions and all of that good stuff. Repeat that with county, and then finally with district. And then we'll talk a little bit about some additional resources that are available to you guys and touch briefly on Robert's rules at the end of the call today too. So with that, we're talking about the timeline here. The timeline is going to be broken out into geographic parts, right? That's how our convention process flows. So we start with our precinct conventions, then we have county conventions, district conventions, and then state and national eventually. So what we're focusing on today is everything before state convention. So precinct, county, and district. So we'll talk about again eligibility for those conventions, where you can find all of the required forms and how, where, and when to submit them, and then really just making sure that you have a level of comfort on how to lead a convention and select delegates. So here's our timeline. So last day to register roughly to participate in our conventions is going to be Monday, February 12th. That's roughly 30 days before precinct convention. And then the first big deadline that you guys as county leaders have coming up is going to be on Saturday, March 2nd, and that is the deadline for your precinct convention notices. I say Saturday, March 2nd, because according to Texas Election Code, that's the official deadline, 10 days prior to the precinct convention. But as you guys probably are well aware, county offices are not open on Saturdays. So treat that deadline as Friday, March 1st. Friday, March 1st should be your deadline to get your precinct convention notices posted. What we're also recommending is there is a separate deadline a little bit later down the line for posting the county convention notices. What I highly recommend you guys do is post your precinct and county convention notices at the same time and save yourself a second trip down to the courthouse. So just to work smarter, not harder option, right? Next thing we have here, and we've got it in red text for a reason, is Tuesday, March 5th. That is the primary election. And in fact, early voting has already started for this primary election. If you haven't already, please be using all of your social media channels, or if you have email distribution lists, whatever communication channels you have available in your county, really start hammering it home today. Do not vote in the primary, even if it's early voting. Voting in the primary is going to make someone ineligible to participate in LP Texas convention. So we need to make sure that our folks know that they cannot go out and vote in either a Republican or Democratic Party and then show up and participate in our convention. Very, very important part of the Texas election code. Next item that we have in March is the deadline for county convention notices. Again, if you haven't done it already, work smarter, not harder. Save yourself a trip. Post those at the same time as you do your precinct convention notices. And then our precinct conventions, of course, are going to be on Tuesday, March 12th. And then we will have a deadline for the precinct convention paperwork to be sent to LP Texas Records, and that'll be on Friday, the 15th. You'll have about 3 days after the precinct convention to get all your paperwork submitted. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. Saturday, March 16th is county convention. And then Saturday, March 23rd is district conventions where applicable. And then we have a deadline for county convention records to be sent on the 26th. So you've got like 10 days for that. You have more records to send from county convention than you do for precinct convention, so you have a little bit longer timeline. And we'll talk about all of that in detail here in a bit. If you are nominating candidates for office at your county convention, you have a deadline of April 5th. As a convention chair to certify the candidates that were nominated at your county convention. And then if you are a convention chair for a district convention, Friday, April 12th is the deadline to certify any candidates who are nominated in a district convention. And we'll get into it here in just a little bit, like what's the difference between, county versus district nominated offices. And then all of that, of course, is going to lead us up to the weekend of April 12th through 14th, where we will be having our LP Texas State Convention in Corpus Christi. All right, so let's do a deep dive into convention notices. So like we were talking about, Texas Election Code requires that notices be posted prior to convention. So what you're expected to do is post notice of the date, the hour, and the place for convening your precinct and county convention. If your county party has its own website, you need to post that on your county website. It needs to be searchable through a search engine, right? In addition to your county website, if you have one, I also recommend using all of your social media channels. So if you have a Facebook page or group, use those. Instagram, Twitter, whatever you guys have, make sure that you're putting all of those dates and times and everything out there and communicating that. In addition, what we are asking all counties to do is also make sure that you post your convention details on the LP Texas page. So I'm just going to toggle over to that LP Texas page for just a second because I want to make sure that you guys know what I'm talking about when I say that. Let me make this just a little bigger for you guys. All right. So if you go to lptexas.org, oops, sorry, I clicked something real quick. Back to this. There you go. You have this event option on their banner. Sometimes you can see this under more. But if you go to lptexas.org and click on events, we want to see all of your precinct and county conventions on the LP Texas calendar. So if we go down here, so right here, like for example, this is the convention leader training that you're on right now. That was on the LP Texas event calendar. We have different things coming up with our counties. And then you can see here it starts Dallas County Precinct Convention, Cameron County Precinct Convention, El Paso County Precinct Convention. We want to make sure that all of your precinct and county convention details are posted out here. And the way that you do that is right here. It says to request an event to be added to the LP Texas calendar, please fill out this form. And if you click on form, that is going to open up a event submission form where you just fill out the details. Make sure that in the event name, guys, that you include your county in there, right? And I know that probably seems self-explanatory, but you would be surprised how many people just put precinct convention in their event name. It needs to say Montgomery County Precinct Convention or Comal County Precinct Convention. Make sure that your county is always in your event name. So if somebody is scrolling through trying to find something going on in your county, that's their visual cue. and then your venue address, the date, the start time, the end time, contact information, all of that good stuff. All right. A second, guys. Looks like I lost connectivity to that for just a second. Are you guys still seeing my screen okay?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
sorry about that. All right, let me get to the slide that I was just on. And we're back. Okay, all right. So as a reminder, although officially TEC says that that deadline is Saturday, March 2nd, we're treating that as Friday, March 1st, right? Again, do yourself a favor, post your precinct in your county details at the same time. I do want to show you some examples of what these look like. So I'm going to pull something over to the screen real quickly. So this is an example of a notice for precinct convention location. So this is an example where all precincts are meeting in the same time and place. This is the most common approach. Some larger counties may have precinct conventions going on at different locations and times, but I would say that probably 95% plus of our counties have all of their precinct conventions at the same time in the same place. Now you may have, precinct 35 down here at one end of the table and precinct 80 down here at the other end of the table. And that's fine. I mean, you have to submit separate paperwork for those conventions, but it's perfectly fine for all of your precincts within your county to meet at the same time and place. And what I'm showing you on my screen now is giving you an example of what that looks like, right? So you're saying, all right, the voters of, your county, for the Libertarian Party, March 12th, 2024, and then you're giving the place. All right, so here is where we're meeting, here's what time we're meeting, and that's for all precincts. Now, if you are part of a larger county and maybe you're having precinct conventions at multiple places, it might look a little something like this, right? So you may say, all right, here's location one and the time, and here is, all the precincts that's meeting here, and then for all other precincts, they're meeting at this location at this time. So I'll give you an example. I actually went to my county courthouse just this past Friday and posted my precinct convention notices. So this is something that I got. And I don't know, every county is going to look a little bit different. And you may or may not have to pay to get these posted. So for example, whenever I posted my my notices on Friday, I had to pay $6. You may have to pay $6. You may not have to pay anything at all. Every county is going to vary based on their particular rules. But what I would recommend doing is if your county offers a certificate of posting, ask them to do this. What I always get my county to do is stamp it, sign it. That way, if anybody comes to me and says, hey, we didn't see that your notices were posted for your county convention, so we're going to try to kick your candidates off the ballot or something like that, I can say, oh no, sir, I've got this paperwork right here that shows that it was stamped and received on X date, and you have that. So and you might want to push for that, guys. So it may not look exactly like this. It may not be a certificate or posting per se, but if you can get them to, like this is I just hand wrote mine, Montgomery County, all precincts. I had them stamp it and all of that good stuff. And this is what you'll actually be sending into records. If you are lucky enough to where they will let you like walk to the court board or the bulletin board where the notices actually get posted, take a selfie. That's another fun thing to do. And you can send those in with records as well, or share them on your social media just to show that the notices were posted. But they do need to be posted, and I would recommend getting a signature and a stamp to show that that happened. That way, it's just kind of a cover your rear end type thing, right? All right. I'll move that back off the screen. And I want to pause there. Does anyone have any questions around convention notices? I do have an example of the county convention notice too. So here's my county certificate of posting. Looks very similar, right? Just a different date and
Were
same
those
thing. I got them to stamp it and I got them to sign it, showing that I've done my part.
was
I heard a
that from
question.
the county's website that you got that?
No, good question. So where you get the convention notices is on the LP Texas convention site. So I'm going to toggle again and let's take it from the top, right? So we're starting at the LP Texas page. So whenever you go to the LP Texas page, you will see this 2024 convention option right here on the homepage banner. Click 2024 convention, and then that takes you to the convention site. Whenever you go to the convention site, you're going to see a couple of different options under the About heading. You'll see a bunch of other options too, tickets, hotels, exhibitors and sponsors, all of that good stuff. But what you're looking for and as a county leader in terms of the forms that you're going to need is under this training and forms section. I will also point out real quickly, though, that if you click on this 2024 election cycle, you remember that slide at the very beginning of the training where I showed all the dates? This is a more robust version of that election timeline. It has the same dates that I've got in this training, but it also goes all the way up to the November general election date. So
Hey,
this is
Jesse,
a really helpful tool.
I understand we're grabbing the required forms from the LP Texas site, but what's the source of those forms?
The source of those forms, those are based on TEC forms that we've LP Texified. But yes.
Okay.
So
and have those been, just because I've got the ones from TEC, have we run those by the SOS or something like that just to make sure they're all copacetic with it? They're not gonna.
I believe we did last term, yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So the training materials that we're going through right here, this file, like that is the deck that we're going through today. And then the convention forms, this link, that is where you will find all of the convention forms that I'm going through right now. This link right here. That'll have the examples of the precinct notices that I shared, the blank precinct notice form, the county convention notice form, and it will have all of the details that you need for all of those various conventions that you've got coming up.
And as far as the posting of the physical posting of notice, last cycle there was a little bit of a head scratcher on whether the requirement was the county clerk's board or the county commissioner or county judges, the county commissioner's court or county judges board. I posted it both because I wasn't sure. And
That's not good, Billy.
Yeah, that's fair. So I mean, here's one thing to kind of keep in mind is whenever you go to post your county convention notices, number one, allow for time to do this, because this is something that these folks only do every 2 years.
Right.
So they probably don't have like a standard operating procedure for this. So I'll give you an example. Whenever I went this past Friday, 2 years ago, when I went to post my conventions, I started at the county clerk office on the first floor. They sent me up to the fourth floor. So me thinking that I was going to be smart, 2 years later, I went directly to the fourth floor to where I worked with the folks to post my notices last time around. And they sent me down to the first floor. So don't expect that it's going to go exactly the way that it did 2 years ago. But to your specific question, Billy, the Texas election code says the county commissioner's bulletin board. What I found was I called ahead and talked to folks, and after being bounced around, transferred a couple of times, I got to the place that told me like, okay, you need to go to, this courthouse, and you need to talk to the county clerk's office and get your stuff posted there. The way that you did it though, Billy, is probably not a bad idea though, to go ahead and
Just
just
because
kind of cover yourself and do both.
they both existed. One of them showed up in one place in writing, and the other showed up in another. In I don't know. I wasn't sure, so I just probably over posted, but I posted.
Yeah, I can speak to that. And Jesse mentioned it. This is a problem that's been confusing for LP Texas for like 6-8 years, and it's because the state doesn't know and the county people don't know. They have no idea. They, like Jesse said, they do this every 2 years, and even then, the chances of you talking to the same person who remembers and knows how that's supposed to work is zero. Like your people at the county commissioner's office or the county clerk's office, they have no idea. So, so I think you're smart to know what the law says, county commissioner's office, and if they say no, then try and do it anyways, and do it at the county clerk's office as well. It's probably the wisest course of action, especially for a large county like Harris, which is critical.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's
we'll
the
just
thing is that
keep
whenever
doing belt and
you go,
suspenders.
I'm going to need to move on now, Billy. But yeah, I think you just need to make some phone calls in advance and validate that. But just be prepared for the folks picking up the phone to really not know, and you're going to have to like guide them to an extent, right? You're going to have to show them, hey, Texas election code says this.
I'll just keep putting it everywhere.
Yeah, that's not a bad approach. It's really not. But do allow yourself some time to be kind of kicked around whenever you go to post those notices, because you may be kicked around a little bit. All right.
Jesse, I accidentally muted you. Can you unmute yourself?
Okay. Oh, sorry. I see now. Thanks, Amanda. So what I was saying is I'm going to go through the precinct convention slides, and whenever I get to the end of the precinct convention slides, I'm going to pause for questions. But we do have Joe Burns, Scott Peterson with the Credentials Committee that are in the chat monitoring for questions. So if you have a question, please feel free to put it into the chat. And then once I get to a stopping point, I'll ask if there are questions in the chat that haven't been addressed yet. Sorry, I should have set that expectation at the top of the call. That's my bad. All right, precinct convention, guys. All right, so precinct convention overview. Again, Tuesday, March 12th is the date for the precinct convention. That is mandated by Texas Election Code. We don't have wiggle room there. That is the date. One thing that we do want to call out is that we have a bylaws change since last cycle that I want to make sure that everyone is aware of. And this is regarding the convening time for the precinct convention. So basically what our bylaw says is no precinct convention if held on a Monday through Friday, and it's always on a Tuesday, so yes, may convene prior to 7 p.m. in a county with a population over 500,000 or 6 p.m. in a county with a population at or fewer than 500,000. Why did we do this? It's so people have time to get to the convention after work on a weekday. We had a situation last term where someone had tried to have their precinct convention at 2 p.m. on Tuesday, which obviously nobody could attend. Now, in this county chair's defense, they were doing that because they are a night shift person. And so they were, trying to get that convention in before they reported for the night shift. I think the night shift is probably the exception, not the rule. So what we want to do is make sure that we are doing this at 6 p.m. at the earliest, and then no earlier than 7 p.m. if you're at one of those larger counties that have 500,000 people or more. So that is to make sure that we are allowing people time to commute from work to get to their precinct conventions on time.
For what it's worth, Texas law requires employers to allow you to take time off.
We're going to have questions at the end. I promise. All right. I want to mention here also that precinct is talking about voting precinct. So we're not talking about like your justice of the peace precinct or your county commissioner precinct or your constable precinct, right? We're talking about your voting precinct. And this is something that we see counties hiccup on from time to time as well. So make sure that whenever you are facilitating your precinct convention, that you're talking with all of your various precincts, that will have their own convention chair, at various ends of the table or the room or whatever, and making sure that they are organizing by voting precinct, not any other precinct. Now, the precincts, again, you're going to have multiple precinct conventions, and they may meet at the same location. And again, they often do, right? That's pretty much the norm. But each individual precinct needs to complete their separate form. Even if there's only one person in that precinct that's present for the precinct convention, they're automatically the precinct chair, and they fill out their own precinct roster. I do want to show you that roster real quickly. I'm going to bring that over onto the screen. So this is the precinct roster. So we'll have the county name here, and then the precinct. Again, that's the voting precinct. The date's already pre-filled for you. And then each person that's in that precinct will need to fill out these details and sign. We do need to have a signature for each person, and we need all of these fields filled out. What I recommend is, and we're going to have an email coming out probably in the next week or so to all LP Texas folks, just kind of setting expectations for precinct conventions, telling them to bring their voter card with them and all of that good stuff. But what I'm recommending that county leaders do is bring a tablet or a laptop or something with you to your precinct conventions, just in case somebody forgets and they show up without their voter ID. You can go onto the Secretary of State website or your county election website and work with that person to look them up and validate that they are in fact a registered voter and their voter registration is current. Another thing I want to call out on this precinct form is that we do have a small change on this form from last term, and it's this right here. It's this share info box. And I want to give you a little bit of background on why we've added this. So in the past, we have had political candidates or even party candidates reach out to the credentials committee and say, hey, can I get a list of all of the people that are going to be at my county convention, or all of the people who are going to be at my district or state convention? Because I want to reach out to them and, basically introduce myself, tell them about myself, but give your stump speech, if you will. And the credentials committee has emphatically said no in the past, because whenever people give their contact information on these forms, they're giving it for credentials purposes only. We are not at liberty to provide contact information from other people to political or party candidates. However, if a person is okay with that, if they are okay with their information being shared, their name and email address with LP Texas candidates, political or party, who request it, they can check this box to indicate, yes, I'm cool with the credentials committee providing my contact information if there's a candidate who wants to contact me. They can always leave it blank or say no. But this is new this year, so I wanted to make sure I call it out. All right. All right, precinct convention eligibility. So cannot have affiliated or participated in the primary of another party. We talked about that at the top of call, right? They have to be a qualified Texas voter and generally support the party statement of principles. So you'll notice that on this precinct convention form, each participant of the precinct convention must take the oath of affiliation before any votes are held. And basically it's saying your signature below indicates completion and accuracy of the following oath. I swear that I have not voted in the primary election or participated in the convention of another party during this voting year. I hereby affiliate myself with the Libertarian Party. So they don't have to do like a standalone oath of affiliation. Them signing right here, this roster form is basically their oath of affiliation in affiliating with the Libertarian Party. One last thing on this form is that again, we talked about each precinct convention is going to have its own chair, right? Down here at the very bottom, there's a signature line where the precinct convention chair needs to sign this form. I recommend county leaders that you highlight this down here to make sure it's not missed. And make sure that your precinct convention chairs do not forget to sign this at the bottom. So they may sign it up here as a delegate of the precinct convention, if you will. But if they are the designated convention chair for that precinct, they need to sign down here as well. All right. Almost done with precinct convention, then we'll stop for questions, guys. All right. So here we have an example of a voter card. So what we need to do is we need to validate the date. Dates are current. And then the voting precinct, again, not any other kind of precinct, the voting precinct, which is right here. And then if we have completed this, then we can stamp or write Libertarian right here on their voter card. So here's the process for the convention, right? So first things first, we get the roster of the participants and their oath of affiliation for each precinct. And again, signed by the precinct chair, must include the precinct number. And then you have your precinct minute. There's a form out there in that link that I showed you for the precinct minute. First, it's the election of the convention chair. And if there's only one person for that precinct, there you go. You're the chair. Done deal. And if there are any other precinct officers, you can do that. So like if you wanted to have a precinct secretary, you could do that. But I find that that's not usual at the precinct level. Usually that's more county convention level. And then also, if there are delegates who could not make the precinct convention, we do have another form called additional delegates elected at precinct convention. Basically what this means is if somebody is not available on Tuesday, March 12th to physically be at the precinct convention, what they can do is they can have another delegate who is in their precinct fill out a form to nominate them. And this is what that form looks like. So again, we've got the details here, county, precinct, and basically what we're saying is we need to get these details for that person. And of course, that needs to be signed by the person who's nominating them. So that's the additional delegates elected at precinct convention. That is how someone can get nominated as a delegate to, that's how someone can be a delegate to county convention if they're not able to make the precinct convention. But there is a catch here. Notice that this form does not have the oath of affiliation that was on the other form. So what this means is that if someone, and again, it has to be in their voting precinct. So if somebody from precinct 35, like can't show up, then someone else from precinct 35 needs to nominate them via this additional delegate form, and they need to make arrangements to make that happen. If they are the only person in their precinct and there is no one else to nominate them, there is no path for them to be a delegate to county convention and future convention. But if they have that form, if that form is filled out on their behalf, and then what they'll need to do is get with the county chair or someone on the executive committee to do a standalone oath of affiliation, and that needs to be signed prior to county convention convening. And here I say, I feel like it's the onus is on the delegate, the prospective delegate, to make sure they get with their county chair or someone on the CEC to do that oath of affiliation. It is not my expectation that you as county leaders go trying to chase down these people that could not make it to precinct convention. They should be making arrangements to have someone fill out this form for them who is in their precinct, and then getting with you to get that oath of affiliation signed to make sure that they are eligible to participate in county convention. So our recommended practice is for these forms, the precinct rosters and the minutes and all of that stuff, the precinct convention chair maybe snaps some photos with their form, that way, their phone, that way they have a electronic copy of the records. But generally what we see happen is that all the precinct convention chairs give all the originals to the county chair. The county chair validates everything, makes sure that we have all the signatures that we need and everything. And then before that 3-day deadline, the county chair submits all of those records to LP Texas. And what I do as a county chair is I copy all of my precinct chairs. That way they know that I got it done. And those need to be sent to records@lptexas.org. All right, I promised that I was going to stop for questions, and this is where I will stop. So questions about precinct conventions, guys.
Yeah, Jesse, it's Randy Simbro. The last thing you just mentioned a moment ago is that the county chair fills out the paperwork, sends it in, etc. And obviously that's best case scenario. Correct me if I'm wrong. It doesn't have to be the county chair. It can be anyone it could be the vice chair or the treasurer, as long as it gets done.
Yeah.
I'm in a county where I'm the vice chair and I'm going to do it all. So I just
Gotcha.
want to double
Okay.
check that's acceptable.
Yeah. Yeah,
Good.
no, that's right. That's right. I think, yes, so long as someone on the CEC sends that in and that those
Good.
records make it to LP Texas, yeah, there's no rule saying that it has to be the county chair who does that. Good
Good.
question.
Thank
Randy.
you for clarifying.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sorry if you already said this, sorry, but how do we determine how many delegates are eligible for the from each precinct for the county convention?
There is none. If somebody shows up to precinct, then they are automatically eligible. Well, they show up to precinct, we validate that their voter registration is current and all of that stuff. They sign the roster, doing their oath of affiliation. They are automatically a delegate for county convention. So there's no, it's not like state convention where each county has an apportioned number of delegates or anything. There's no limit. So if somebody shows up for precinct, signs that roster, and you validated all the eligibility requirements, then they are an eligible delegate for county convention. That's a good question.
Okay, then a follow up. And you said, but for a precinct, they have to have a second in order to have a path to be a delegate? I thought I heard that.
Yeah, no. So that was, sorry, this one's a little bit hairy. So what we were talking about there was in the event that someone is not able to make it to precinct convention. If they're not, yeah, if so,
if only one person shows up for a precinct, they can still be a delegate.
Ask that question again.
If only one person shows up in a particular precinct, they can still be a delegate as long as they show up.
Oh yeah. No, if they show up and they fill out that roster, that's fine.
Okay.
What I was talking about with that additional delegate form is the instance where someone doesn't show up. They can't show up to precinct convention. And so they have someone else in their precinct fill out that additional delegate form for them. If that happens, if they can get someone else from their precinct to fill out that form for them, and that person can get with the county chair and make sure they get an oath of affiliation on file prior to county convention, then they can be a delegate to county convention.
Okay, thank you.
So, yes, no problem. All right. Any other questions that are out there in the chat, team? All right, we're going to keep rocking and rolling then into county convention. County convention, Saturday, March 16th, no wiggle room here. And there's no, specification on the times that it can start in LP Texas bylaws. That really only applies to precinct conventions because it's on a weekday. County conventions and district conventions are on Saturdays, so we don't specify any kind of start times on that. What I do recommend doing is maybe, as a courtesy, reaching out to your voting membership in your county to say, hey guys, would you guys prefer to have a mid-morning meeting or a late afternoon meeting? It's always good to poll folks, or at least poll the other members of your CEC on time. But the county executive committee sets the convention locations and times. And again, those times must be published no less than 10 days before the county convention. So that's the convention notice we talked about at the top of the call. And I do like to point out here that county conventions, there's a lot going on in county conventions, right? So you have a pretty robust agenda that you need to get through. We're nominating delegates for district convention, delegates for state convention, the CEC for the upcoming term. There's a number, adopting or modifying bylaws. There's a lot that happens at county convention. So whereas you may be, in and out of precinct convention, in an hour or two tops, depending on the size of your county, of course, county convention is going to take longer. And I mention this because whenever you're going to book a space for your county convention, you're going to want to make sure that you allow time to get through that full agenda. So I'll say Harris County is like a 6 to 8 hour affair. For me, for Montgomery County, we're usually like a 2 to 3 hour, 2 to 3 hour affair, because we're not as big a county as Harris, that has just like dozens of delegates, right? So just make sure whenever you're booking your county convention that you allow more time than you probably needed for the precinct convention. All right. And then again, to ensure the credentialing of state delegates, we need to make sure that all of your paperwork is turned in by March 26th to the records. And again, to Randy's point, that doesn't necessarily have to be done by the county chair. It needs to be done by a member of the CEC. And then if there are any candidates nominated at your county convention, then those need to be certified no later than April 5th. So we'll talk about those things here in just a second. So county convention eligibility. So obviously must have met the eligibility requirements for precinct convention. They need to have had their precinct convention records received by the county and state chairs, which that's by sending it to the records distribution list, right? And then again, if somebody has come in as an additional delegate, they're elected by somebody in their precinct as an additional delegate because they weren't present, then they need to have that oath of affiliation administered by a CEC officer before county convention convene. All right. So the next several slides are going to go over the county convention process in a minute. So on the right-hand side, we have the county convention steps. And this will be the steps that you take to organize your county convention, unless your bylaws say otherwise. So first, we have the call to order by the county chair or another CEC officer if the chair is not physically there. You have a roster of participants for the county convention. And one thing, and I won't bring up the form in the interest of time, but I do want to call out there is a new field on the county, that's on the roster of delegates. Never mind, hold that thought. All right, so roster of participants, and we need to have names, VUIDs, and all of that stuff that we in the credentials committee can use to validate all of those delegates. Then you'll nominate the temporary officers of the convention. So officers of the convention, right? So typically the temporary convention officer is the county chair or is appointed by the county chair. It doesn't have to be, but just who's the temporary officer? Most of the time it's the county chair. In Randy's case, it's probably going to be Randy, right? So that's the temporary officers of the convention. Then you actually do the nominations and elections for the permanent officers of the convention. We're not talking about the CEC for the next term yet. We're talking about nominations and elections for permanent officers of the convention. So a permanent convention chair needs to be elected, and that's the person who's going to take charge and run the show from there on out. It's most often the county chair, but it can be anyone, right? So other people can be nominated. We do say that there should be a convention secretary. So unless you're a one-man show in your county, Bob, then you might want to have you'll want to have a convention secretary to take convention minutes. But even for you, Bob, or for other of you on the call who may be like a one-man county, even though you're the only person there, you still have to go through the motions. You still have to do the roster. You still have to take the minutes and turn those in. Parliamentarian's kind of a nice to have, but it's certainly not mandatory. But generally speaking, a convention chair and convention secretary should be nominated and elected. All right, so that gets us, if we're looking over here on the side 1 through 4, so continuing on the next slide, starting with number 5, we're adopting the agenda. So this is basically the list of things that we're seeing right here. So this is the general order of business. Again, your county bylaws may say something different if you are not using the standard LP Texas bylaws template. So if your county bylaws define an order of business kind of outside of what I'm going over, follow your county bylaws. And if that's, in that case, present the agenda, according to your bylaws. But if you don't have an order of business already defined in your bylaws, follow these steps. We've laid it out for you to get you taken care of. So you adopt the agenda. So motion to adopt the agenda. Second. No objections. Agenda's adopted. It's literally that simple. All right. Then we move on to nomination and elections for candidates for public office. Now, this I want to talk about. We're talking about county convention right now. So whenever we're nominating candidates for public office at a county convention, it needs to be for races that are wholly contained within the county. So county judge, county commissioner, something like that. However, there are some House districts and Senate districts that are wholly contained within a county. And if that's the case, then those would be nominated at county convention as well. The only time somebody needs to be nominated at district convention is if that district touches more than one county. So for example, I'm in Montgomery County, and one of my district conventions is going to be for Congressional District 2. That touches both Montgomery County and Harris County. So now I'm working with Billy in Harris County to organize that district convention. But if it was a race that was wholly contained in the county, it would be nominated at county convention. And I think folks get hung up on the semantics sometimes because they hear House district, Congressional district, Senate district. They're hearing that district word and they're automatically assuming that it needs to be nominated at a district convention. But that's not the case if the district is wholly contained within a county. All right. So nominations and elections of candidates for public office. As always, your county reserves the right to notice someone. It is not uncommon for folks to try to, who have been rejected for nominations from their own party, to then show up at libertarian conventions and try to capitalize on our ballot access. You can say no. That's all I'll say about that. All right. After nominations and elections of candidates for public office, now we're getting into nominations and election of CEC officers. So who's going to be the chair, the vice chair, the secretary, the treasurer, what have you, for the 2024 to 2026 term. So this is where you're going to have your nominations and elections for your CEC. All right, so that gets us through number 7. Moving on to the next slide, we're now talking about number 8, and that is nominations and elections of district delegates. Again, only applicable if you have a candidate who is running for office and it touches your county and other counties. You should, as a county CEC, you guys should have, or at least as county chairs, already have been contacted by Anastasia Wilford, the LP Texas secretary, to notify you if you are responsible for organizing or participating, in a district convention. If you think there is a district convention applicable to your county and you have not been notified of that yet, I highly recommend reaching out to Anastasia to confirm, and you can reach her at secretary@lptexas.org. And those nominations and elections, there is a form for that, and you can indicate that it's for multiple district conventions on that form. You don't have to fill out a separate one. It'll be a space that says, district conventions. It's a small space, so you may have to write outside the lines, but you could say, all right, we're nominating all these people for the CD2 district convention and the CD8 district convention. That's perfectly fine. All right. And then nominations and elections to the state convention. Now, this is where we get to talking about the specific numbers, right? So you guys should have received an email from me, and I think I've resent it a couple of times as well, that had a link to the 2024 delegate apportionment worksheet. And this is basically laying out all of the counties in LP Texas, and it's saying how many delegates they have apportioned for each county. So for example, again, I'm Montgomery County. I've got 6 delegate spots to go to state. So I know whenever I go into my county convention, I'm looking to fill 6 delegate spots and up to 6 alternate spots. So you as a county leader, you need to find that out before your county convention. Know how many delegate spots you're filling before you go into that convention. All right. And then the final items here, number 10 and 11. So adoption or modification to county bylaws. You may not want to make changes to your bylaws. I recommend reaching out to your CEC and voting members, just, kind of a bit of pre-work to ask, hey, has anybody, thought about any modifications they'd like to see in our county bylaws? Anything that we want to try to, workshop before the county convention might be a good thing to do, just because, again, you've booked a certain amount of time for the space, and if the conversation runs long, you may have to cut it off because your reservation's over. So maybe try to start, talking about those things and workshopping it ahead of time. It is not necessary that you adopt or modify your county bylaws, but what we do ask that you do is that even if you guys agree, hey, we like our bylaws as they are, we want to stick with the bylaws, to please go ahead and send a copy of your bylaws into the records distribution list whenever you send all your other county forms, like your CEC form, all of that good stuff. Go ahead and send your bylaws in. That way we have it on file at LP Texas. And so if the secretary ever needed to, validate your bylaws or anything, we know that we have the most recent version on file. I mean, for example, we've got some counties that haven't modified bylaws since like 2018. So whenever we're going in to find their bylaws, we're having to click in multiple year folders to try to find the most recent version. So if you could just send in your most recent copy, that's just your validation that this is the most recent copy. Now, on that note, we did roll out in 2022 a new county bylaws template. That template, we strongly encouraged all counties to adopt that template in 2022. You don't have to wholly adopt it. You can make some tweaks and modifications. For example, I did that in Montgomery County. I adopted the template and I just incorporated some onesie-twosie changes, some things that we liked from our old bylaws that we wanted to keep. But it did address some key things that we were seeing as major pain points, like how to do nominations and elections for select vacancies, things like that. So if you are not on the most recent version of the county bylaws template, then I would recommend trying to make that change in 2024, even if you do need to make some tweaks or something, just so you're kind of consistent with the other counties. Now, if you're a new county that's just recently been affiliated, then you're probably already on that standard template. And I think most counties did that in 2022, but I do know that there were a few that did not, and we know what those are because we've run into problems with their select vacancies this term. All right, and then finally, other business. And this is only if you have other business, right? So if your county wants to pass a resolution, like their statement on, immigration or their statement on Texas or something like that. Basically, it's just a non-binding statement. So you could do any kind of resolutions or something at that time. And then the convention ends when a motion to adjourn has been passed. And that is county convention. Lots of questions for county convention, I'm sure. So what do we have out in the chat, guys? Any questions for county conventions?
All right, I'll toss a couple out there because I'm getting
Okay.
I always get a little bit of conflicting answers.
Sure.
First one, if a district, because I'm getting conflicting answers in direct messages even right now. So if a
Okay.
district, a House or Senate district touches multiple counties, but
Mhm.
only one of those counties is affiliated, does the district convention or does that election for nomination and election have to take place
Mhm.
on district convention day, or can that be handled at county convention since there's no other county for that particular race?
I
And
don't
then I got a
think there's
second
any.
question.
Yeah. Well, let me tackle the first one before you go to the second one.
Yeah,
I think the
yeah.
short answer is if I think whenever the district conventions, we're looking at affiliated counties, but I will double check that. I don't know that there is anything in our LP Texas bylaws or the Texas election code. And just to say it, guys, Texas election code on district convention is like
Yeah,
we get like
yeah.
this much information. They're very prescriptive on precinct and county conventions, but then in district conventions, they just like gave up. So
Okay.
let us take that as a follow-up. If I could ask someone from the credentials committee to follow up on that and just or capture that as a follow-up. I know we had a
Sure.
follow-up from Saturday's session as well. Let us take that back and we'll get back to the group because I know we owe a couple of answers from the previous training
Cool.
sessions as well. You had a number 2 though, Billy.
Yeah, the number 2, because this comes up every doggone cycle and starts a minor argument.
Okay.
The people that the delegates to district conventions,
Mhm.
are they required to live and be registered voters in that district?
They are not. They are not. So
Okay.
I'll give you an example. So our district convention, right? Montgomery and Harris
Mhm.
County is congressional district 2. Anyone from Montgomery County and anyone from Harris County can participate in that district convention as long as they meet the requirements. There's nothing in LP Texas bylaws or the Texas election code that says that they have to live in that district. Moreover, there's nothing in the LP Texas bylaws or Texas election code that says the convention has to take place in the district.
Right.
So long as it's communicated and those are duly elected people from the county convention, they can participate. Now, they may or may not want to participate because it's not, it's not a convention that they're particularly interested in because they don't live in that district, but they certainly could if they wanted to.
Okay. Just making sure it comes up every cycle. Appreciate it.
It does. It comes up every single cycle, and I'm telling you, it's because there's the bylaws and the election code are mum on that point. Yep. Good question. What other questions do we have out there, guys?
Jesse, just to clarify the last thing about the district lines, because it is confusing, particularly for Billy and Harris, because that's so many districts. And Jeff Miller just put this in the chat. You do have to be elected to the district convention by your county.
Yes.
Even if you don't live in that district, and that district has to have at least some part of space in that county. So if it's like a sliver up the freeway, and some of these district lines are, even if no one lives in that district because it's I-35 and there's one of them by my house, you're eligible for that.
Yes.
So you can't just show up at a district convention, 3 hours away. That isn't going to fly. But,
yeah. I mean, some people do though, because some of those districts are big districts, right?
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But
And
I guess the point that I would make to that, Randy, is that please don't feel like.
Yeah.
So if it's a situation where the district is like just this one little sliver of highway in your county and you don't have anyone that lives there,
Right.
don't feel obligated to
Right.
send someone to your county, from your county to that district convention. Like, that's just because you can doesn't mean that
Good
you
point.
have to, right?
You're absolutely right.
So what I usually say in you guys know I'm a big NOTA girl. So if you feel very strongly about a candidate, like you feel like they're going to do a great job of representing LP Texas and you really want to go to that district convention and put in your vote for that person, then by all means do it. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. Take a drink of water. I've been talking for a bit. Conversely, if you feel that this candidate is horrible, this is a Republican who is showing up to or a Democrat who is showing up to the LP conventions just because they didn't get the nomination for their party, they do not represent our principles. You know this, and you want to make sure that that person does not get nominated. Maybe you go to that district convention just specifically so you can try to no to that person.
Absolutely.
So,
and
yeah.
that's a lot of fun too. When you get a chance to do that, it's a good time.
Yeah. All
Well
right.
said.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Any other questions before I move on to district convention? Oh, I did see a question in the chat from Janae. The bylaws, the same place as the convention form, Janae, there is the bylaws template is in there as well. That same link from the convention site. Oh, and I see Scott said he was going to send you a copy. All right, gang, if there's no other questions on county convention, I'm going to move on to district convention and try to get us out of here on time at 8:30. All right, district convention overview. So district conventions are on Saturday, March 23rd. This could be a busy day for you. District conventions, once again, your county may touch multiple districts, congressional district, House district, State Board of Education. If you're someone like Billy in Harris County, you've got multiple district conventions that you're trying to organize with multiple different counties. What I'm going to say here is have some grace, right? Try to be accommodating as best we can. The example that I always give is from 2022. We have Robert Applebaum, who is in Polk County. So he's part of Senate District 3, but then he was also part, like the northern part, of a State Board of Education district that was like, that had a lot of the southern Houston metro area counties like Montgomery County, Harris County, etc. So poor Robert Applebaum was trying to make a district convention in Lumberton for Senate District 3, and then also trying to figure out how he was going to get down to, the Montgomery-Harris County line for a district convention in the same day. So make sure that you guys as county leaders, that you're communicating with, not only your CEC, but your other county leaders. And again, you should have received an email from Anastasia Wilford if you have a district convention that you need to participate or organize, right? And just making sure that you're allowing people time to get from point A to point B. Because for people who are eager beavers and want to participate in every district convention possible, that is a lot of driving on that one day. And again, it's all one day, and Texas election code doesn't have any wiggle room. All the district conventions need to happen on one day. So I would say, again, if you have multiple district conventions going on, maybe you do, as a delegate, choose the one that's applicable for, the district that you live in, or the one that you feel strongly about. I think that it's admirable to try to attend every district convention that touches your county, but sometimes it's just not feasible. Water break again. So if you have a convention that's happening, noon, an hour, north, and then you have another one that's happening at 1 o'clock an hour south, you're probably going to have to pick which one of those you go to. The the district executive committees, the leaders of the counties are, I'm sure, going to do their very best to try to accommodate people. And I'm sure they're going to get feedback and be like, hey, can we move this district convention because I need to be somewhere else at, this time. So I would just say, do your best to accommodate as best we can. All right. And again, no specific start times for district conventions either. All right. So let's talk about eligibility. Eligibility for district is easy. You just have to be an elected district delegate from your county convention and a voting member. I am so sorry. I keep coughing and okay. Process. Call to order by a member of the DEC. Again, if you are participating in a district convention, you may have been told that you are the person responsible for organizing the district, like you are the temporary district chair. So make sure you start trying to organize those things sooner rather than later. That can be called by any member of the DEC, which is basically the CEC of all the counties involved. Then you have your roster of participants. So we've got a form for that. And that needs to be, determined to, establish quorum and all of that good stuff. Need to have the names and the BUIDs and all of that stuff so that, it can be easily matched to the precinct and county convention records to validate eligibility should that be needed. And then again, you have the temporary officers of the convention that are introduced. And then you have your nominations and elections of the permanent officers of the convention. And then you have your nominations and elections for the candidates for public office. Now, I do want to emphasize, I know that some counties will try to say, hey, you know what? We're going to have, and we had the situation in my county in 2022. We're like, hey, we've got the Congressional District 8 and the State Board of Education District 8 convention. They touch pretty much all the same counties. So, hey, let's just get together and do both of these district conventions at the same time and place. That's totally fine, so long as you understand that you have to go through steps 1 through 5 for every district convention that's taking place. So if, for example, you are meeting and you are doing Congressional District 8 and State Board of Education 8, you would need to pick which one you're going to tackle first. You would need to have a call to order, a roster for each one, nominate officers for each one, and nominate candidates for that one. Close, adjourn that district convention, start it all over for the next district convention. So you do have to go through the motions for each district convention, even if you're meeting in the same time or place. Same time and place. And that's pretty much it for district conventions. Good questions, guys. I want to pause just in case there's other questions that have come up during that.
Yeah, Jesse, just like we can do additionally elected delegates who weren't present at precinct to be delegates at county, does the same still apply where folks who couldn't make it to county but are otherwise affiliated and they've got the next Saturday free and they want to go to district? We can still do that, right?
No, sir.
No, we can't.
If they were, let me think through this. So if they were at precinct convention,
or as long as they're affiliated, the way we've treated before is
yeah,
as long
if
as
they're affiliated, then yes. Okay. So yeah, if they've gone through the motions and they've affiliated at precinct convention or through that additional delegate process we've talked about, and for some reason they couldn't make it to county.
Because they're working, right?
Right. So they would be affiliated, but
right. And if the members at county elect them or nominate them and elect them as a delegate to district, is there a prohibition on them serving as a delegate at district?
I do not believe so.
Okay.
They would have to be nominated and elected at county, which can technically happen if they are affiliated. So in that case, that would probably be kind of a quick validation on, the CEC or the convention chair, just to validate, okay, do we have this person's records from precinct convention or oath of affiliation, all that stuff on file? And if so, then yes.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so they don't have to be physically in attendance as long as they've affiliated with at precinct.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, good question. What else, guys?
Jesse, I would say this to Billy's question, because that's a particularly complex matter, and it's, code is a little vague on these. What if this? So Billy, I think what Jesse said is true. It's correct because she knows her stuff. You'd have to be nominated at the county convention in order to be eligible for district. But I don't think that means you have to be in attendance.
Yeah.
The potential problem is if they didn't show up in person at precinct and they were nominated via that additional delegate at precinct, and they also didn't show up at county, you might be opening yourself up to a challenge as to that person's eligibility as a delegate at district or state. And
Yeah,
if
you
they're
You would have to
be
have
very
that
careful.
oath of affiliation on file before county.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
that would be
before
really
they could
important
be
because-
nominated.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we've got an
run
affiliation
into
form
problems.
from the Secretary of State that we use, and we run a check to make sure they haven't voted in the primaries against the
excellent.
databases.
Okay, that is
We're
very smart.
We're extra careful here because of
good.
history.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Good.
because what we don't want to do is have anyone challenge the integrity or the validity of the district convention and have that
Yeah.
have a negative impact on our candidate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good question. Any other
And then-
questions about district out there?
And I guess posting requirements for district convention.
Nope, but we do recommend that once those details are defined, that you put it out on your county website, your socials, certainly the LP Texas, but there's nothing
Sure.
that you have to go to the courthouse to do.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir. Yeah, like I said, the Texas election code is like they got to the district convention section and then they just ran out of steam. All right. Okay. Last bit here, guys. So resources. So we talked about this. We touched on it a little bit at the top of the call. So again, the LP Texas page now has that 2024 convention header, and then we have the training and forms. We also have, I mentioned that state delegate apportionment worksheet where you can validate how many delegates you have for your county. You can access that from this training deck that we're presenting here. And then, of course, the entire convention website has a bunch of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump over to that once again, guys. So this is our convention website. Training and forms. So the presentation we're going over right now is under training materials. Eventually, this is going to be updated to include state delegate training. So we are going to be doing another training on state delegates for all state delegates and alternates in late March. So keep an eye out on your email for that. So we will be having another training series coming up. And then again, all of the forms that we've talked through, those are out here, as well as the standalone oath of affiliation, the bylaws template, all of those things are out here on this convention forms link. But you have a lot of other cool information out here too. So if you're just interested to see who all's on what committee, you can click on committees and you can see here's your platform committee. And this is the email where you can reach everyone on the platform committee. And same thing with bylaws and with credentials. If you wanted to know who our featured guests are going to be at the convention, if you want to purchase tickets for the convention, hotels and travel, anyone that's interested in being an exhibitor or sponsor, if you want to host a table at the convention, we have a vote with your dollars poll going on right now. The top 4 candidates will be invited to our presidential debate on that first Friday night of state convention. So if you wanted to go vote for a candidate, you can, your favorite presidential candidate, you could go out there and vote with your dollars. And then we've got a contact thing out here as well. So just wanted to make sure that everybody was familiar with this convention website. Again, most of the stuff that what we're talking about as county leaders, you're going to find on this 2024 election cycle and training and forms link, but there's a whole bunch of other cool information out here if you wanted to start checking some of that other stuff out. All right. whenever I toggle, it wants me to relaunch this. Sorry, guys. All right. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is Robert's rules. And the first point is don't be intimidated by Robert's rules, guys. There are some larger counties that are, you know, or like Harris County is like Robert's rules on steroids. But for you guys who are part of smaller counties, it's not something that you need to fret about. So we do have some basic definitions here on this slide. So, you know, what's a motion? What's a second? What's an amendment? You know, what does a presiding officer mean? But we also have a table here. And so I basically just clicked on this here thing, which you can do from the training materials as well. And this is just what we call our parliamentary procedure at a glance. So what to say, when to say it. So, you know, if you want to adjourn a meeting, you say this. You know, can you interrupt a speaker to do that? Does this kind of motion require a second? Is it debatable? Can it be amended? You know, what vote threshold does it need to pass? You know, a majority versus 2/3 or something like that. So those are things here. This is just a nice little helpful cheat sheet. And this cheat sheet should be what you need to get through your county and district convention. There shouldn't be a whole lot of you know, Robert's rules, you know, stuff going on there. And again, unless you're part of a larger county that's, you know, very, very into the Robert's rules thing. But for you guys that are, you know, kind of part of the, you know, the smaller counties, this should be all you need. There is and I don't have it handy with me tonight. I had it with me the last training session. But if you're just interested in reading up on Robert's rules, rather than getting the big thick Robert's rules book, there is a Robert's rules in brief option that you can have, and maybe you just, you know, you can buy that off of Amazon and then have that with you and have it handy just in case you need it. But I would say it's probably unlikely that you will need it unless you're Harris County. Sorry, Billy. Oh, all right. And with that, guys, that was the last bit of information that we had. And this is the first training session that we've done, which is actually looking like it might end ahead of schedule. But still, I want to make sure that we open it up for questions and we address any questions that you guys have. Amanda put in the chat and wants everyone to know that on the shop.lptexas.org, there is some official convention merch that's out there. So definitely check that out.
It's really awesome.
It's really awesome. Here, let's see. I'm going to go back to lptexas.org. Show everybody where that's at. So under store. Oh, okay. Looks like we've got some St. Patrick's Day stuff coming out too. Here's what Amanda's talking about. So we've got like a tote, we've got a flag, and then we've got some
Yeah,
notebooks,
and there's shirts.
t-shirts.
If you go
Yeah.
back up and click load more, a little bit, go down. Right there. Oh, yep.
There
Do
we go.
any of
Yeah.
the shirts have collars?
No, because they don't.
You're dead to
offer
me.
those.
A polo
I
shirt,
cannot-
Amanda. You could have done one polo shirt.
I can't put a
Alright.
little van on a polo shirt.
What other questions, guys?
Oh, Jeff
Notices,
Miller.
precinct convention, county convention, district convention. What you got? What other
So-
questions are out there? I want to make sure that everybody feels super comfortable.
I know it comes up in primary elections, so I'm just throwing out there hypothetically, somebody shows up to the precinct convention and they don't have a voter card, and when we look them up on the voter website, It doesn't show them registered. Is there any equivalent at the convention like there is at actual elections for like provisional ballots, or, something that says they're going to participate, but they aren't verified yet?
No.
Okay.
No.
So it's basically
And
if they're not
that's
on
why
there,
we're
then-
saying, like, to make sure that if they haven't registered to vote, or maybe they haven't updated their address, so they're not registered to vote in your county yet because they just moved there, they need to have made sure that they get that updated. And we said, by February 12th, because that's 30 days before the precinct convention, and so that's just kind of allowing processing time, right? So, like, for example, with the primaries, it's 30 days before the primary date. So we just kind of rolled with the same thing because, again, there's nothing, specific in the election code around it. But yeah, no, Jeff, if they don't show up with their voter card, and you can't validate them on your county election site, and you can't validate them on the Secretary of State site, they cannot participate, because you cannot validate them, and letting them participate puts the entire convention at risk.
and you-
Jesse, we have had folks show up with, their voter registration cards, or they are registered to vote, but they've moved, within the county, and they're in a different precinct now, and they've moved recently, and our past practices have been split. We've had some cycles where because we have voter registrars, volunteer voter registrars, in the party, when we've helped them update their voter registration address right there, at the table, and then allow them to vote in their new district. And then we had a cycle where they weren't allowed to vote in district, but they could be nominated and go to county as delegates because they did live in the county. But I honestly don't know if it comes up again.
Yeah.
I'm still scratching my head because I can't find any clarity.
Yeah, I think your situation was a little bit different than what Jeff was describing. Jeff was saying they don't have a voter card, and you couldn't verify their eligibility.
Oh, yeah,
their voter
definitely different, yeah.
registration. Yeah. So I think what you're talking about is a horse of a different color, right? You're talking
Oh,
about.
no,
someone
I was asking a
who is
separate question.
Oh, okay.
I
So
agree,
yeah.
I agree with your answer to his question.
Okay.
I'm asking a separate question. How have y'all?
Okay,
other
well,
folks handled it when somebody
before you
moves?
jump in with your question, can I ask Jeff if I answered his
Oh, okay.
question?
Yeah,
Is he
sure.
good?
Yes, and it made me think of something else, because I talked to somebody just this week who said, "Oh, I got invited to the Dallas County Convention, so I'm going to go to that." And then in the course of our conversation, she was talking about how she moved from Denton County, and I said, "Well, are you registered? Did you change your registration?" And she says, "I may still be registered in Denton County." I said, "Well, if you are, then you have to go to the Denton County
Yes.
Convention, not the
That's
Dallas
right.
one."
That is right. That is right. Yep. Nope. Good point. Good point. Yeah.
Jesse,
So you
question
have to
about-
participate where you're registered.
But
And
Yes,
and,
can
and,
they-
and what you were talking about, Billy. Now I'm going to jump back over to you, Billy.
Yeah.
Now that I've made sure that Jeff's question was
Sure.
fully answered. But while I appreciate the voter registrars being on site and everything, like, I feel like all of that would have needed to have been done before the precinct convention convened, right?
Yeah, it was before it convened. Yeah, it was during check-in.
Okay.
Check-in usually takes about a half hour to 45 minutes to check everybody, and then there's the about hour to hour and a half
Okay.
of convention, and everybody leaves. But yeah,
Okay.
we in one cycle we let the registrars go ahead and update their addresses, and they voted in their new precincts. In the other cycle that I was paying attention and really keying in and participating in, they said, no, you can't vote at precinct, but because you live in the county, somebody in your new precinct can nominate you as a delegate to county because you do live in the county. And
Yeah. I guess
And
it's all
so,
going to
I
come
don't
down
know.
to whether you have voter registrars like there and present at your precinct conventions. Yeah.
They're members.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, there's nothing in the bylaws, there's nothing in the convention code that says anything to the contrary, Billy. So, I mean, I feel like that's a reasonable approach as long as as long as like what you're saying, it happens during check-in and before
Yeah.
the precinct convention convenes.
Yeah.
And I would say that, I mean, and obviously the voter registrar is going to be looking at an ID to validate address and all of that stuff too. So, I mean, I think obviously the voter registrar has their own process that they need to go through. One. Yeah. So as long as they're following that, then I feel like that's okay.
Okay.
Jesse, I got a question about district.
Yes, sir.
We just today booked details for one congressional district convention, and per what you mentioned, I emailed Anastasia Wilford at Secretary at LP Texas, like just a few minutes ago. Is that the only thing I need to do? I mean, is there something else for district that I've got to double check with, or?
Yeah. So you definitely need to make sure that you let them know. So the district notices don't have to be posted.
Right.
But going back to this, so basically the DEC, the district executive committee, votes on their district convention location, everything, and then that needs to be sent to records at LP Texas and LP chair at LP Texas at least 15 days before the district convention.
I'm going to do that right now.
Awesome. Good deal. What other questions do we have, guys?
Jesse and Scott, y'all give me a call when you want to chat about where to hold district conventions. We can work it out. Y'all give me a call.
Will do. Yeah, I shot you an email the other day, Billy.
Okay, cool.
All right. Okay, gang. If there are no other questions, we will go ahead and adjourn for this evening.
How about a question regarding the
sure.
the notice of let's see, precinct conventions and locations that you posted on there. What would be any opposition to using that as a newspaper notice?
I mean, I think that's okay. I mean, if you have a county website, and I don't know if you do, you're required to post it there.
Yeah, I don't have that.
Yeah, I think a newspaper notice isn't going to satisfy the Texas election code.
No. I mean, like it'll be posted at the courthouse. It's just right down the road. But I mean, to let people know of in the county.
Just kind of going the extra mile. No, I like that, Bob. Absolutely.
Yeah, but
especially
I was just
if you
wondering,
have like a small town newspaper and everything, that might actually be more effective.
Yeah, and my question is does this act as a political ad, or is it just a notice, so it doesn't require the TEC requirement of like having to be paid to be put into the paper?
Yeah, no, my understanding is that it is a notice. But like I said, whenever I went to just post it my county, they charged me $6 for it. So
right.
But this is a notice. It's not I wouldn't consider it an ad, but I think ultimately the newspaper will make that call.
Right. But I'm just wanting to cover that we don't come back and get bit with a penalty for not having a certain buzzword attached to it.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, I'll open that up to the rest of the credentials committee. Joe, do you have a point of view on that? Or Scott? I think Joe might be on mute. I think you're okay, Bob.
Okay.
But it might be worth doing a little Googling around just to make sure.
Okay, that's it.
All right, gang. Well, thank you very much for joining this evening. And I appreciate all the engagement, all the good questions and everything. And I know you may have some questions as you kind of digest this information. So if you do have any questions, please send them to credentials@lptexas.org. That will go to the entire credentials committee and we will organize a response and get back to you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening, everyone.